Amber, did you want to do a roll call?
Sure, I can do that. Kalea Youngblood.
That's me.
Kelly Stokes. Marion Napoleon.
Here.
Rick Albers.
Present.
Rob Cook.
Here.
Candy Cook. Mary Lou Henry.
Here.
I'm here.
Sarah Norman. Ruben Pena.
I'm here.
Charles Porter.
I'm here. Thank you.
And Lori Selecki.
Here.
All right, thank you. I'd like to say hi to Commissioner Wilkinson. Thank you for being here. And just a reminder to please mute yourself. We'll try to keep an eye on the chat and make sure everybody gets a turn to speak as necessary, but I'm going to try to manage this virtually today. So let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, which is the discussion and possible action to amend the July 13th, 2020 meeting minutes. Do we have any, anybody have any amendments or changes?
Chloe, can I interrupt? Sorry, just real
Sure.
quick on housekeeping. I'm sorry about that.
Absolutely.
I just had a couple of things, and you actually covered most of them. Which is, you have the hand raise function. I see Scott is already raised, so you know how to use it. The thing people often forget is to unraise. So once you've spoken, you can unraise your hand, and then people aren't concerned that you have another thing. And then if everybody can, it looks like you're doing it, but mute when you are not actively speaking. It really helps with the interference. And the chat function, as the chair just said, let's keep that to I'm having technical issues, something along those lines, just for purposes of having a true and accurate recording of this meeting for open meetings purposes. That chat function just gets really problematic for us. But you can absolutely use it if you are having an issue, anything like that, please feel free to do that. And the last thing I will say is when we get to, and now I've lost my agenda number, agenda item, hold on, scroll down. I'm going to call it the CE Course Topics Working Group number 6. Chelsea's actually going to join us today on that one, and discuss it a little bit and what we can do with it. So she may be running a little bit late. I think by the time we get to that one, she'll be here. But in the event we have to take that out of order, I can let you, Kalea, know that, and we'll be okay. So
That'd be great.
And hopefully I don't say anything else the rest of the meeting.
Well, you can chime in whenever you need to, Vanessa. Thank you. All right, Scott, did you have discussion for agenda item number 3?
Yeah, on 3, it's not so much the minutes, but it's something in reference to the minutes. Let me pull up my notes. From the minutes on July 13th, it's agenda item 13B. It looks like we still haven't added a recurring agenda item regarding topics to be included on the education newsletter that was discussed in the meeting. So just as a reminder, whoever's doing the agenda, it should always be the item listed prior to discussion and possible action regarding time and agenda items for the next meeting. So it should be like the 3rd from the bottom, but it's not on the agenda for today.
Okay, yeah, I remember us talking about that, and we can certainly add it to today with a motion to add it to our meeting for today's purposes. Scott, did you want to make a motion to add that to our agenda today?
Yeah, make a motion to add that to the agenda and make sure it is a recurring item moving forward.
Second.
So I don't know that we can add it to today's agenda because it wasn't posted, but I apologize for that. I think I missed that. We'll definitely put that on for your January meeting. And I'm sorry about that. I think that was just one that got missed. But since it hasn't been publicly noticed for this meeting, we'll need to hold off until the next meeting. Which
can we just do it as a non-item agenda?
I I would not. I think you've really got to, you know, when it comes to agenda and having it publicly posted so that everyone knows what's coming up, and that's something that I think providers would have an interest in. So I would just go ahead and hold off. And I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, please make sure it's on there. I mean, there's a purpose that we're wanting to get information out to the providers on the newsletter, and now we're going to miss that chance again.
Sure, I understand that, and I can, you know, I'll work with Kalea on perhaps an alternate route to getting something out there, but we can't, for the purposes of this meeting, it wasn't on there, it wasn't noticed. But Kalea, you and I can maybe try and come up with something, maybe from the chair or something like that, okay?
Sure. That sounds good. We'll note that. I made a note for January as well.
Had to be redone before he was going to approve it.
Just a reminder, please, to mute yourself.
Those wires.
Let's move on to agenda item number 4, public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public comments today? No.
Hold on one second, you guys. Let me see if I can get that muted. Okay, well, it sounds muted now. Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 5. Let's move on to the staff report on education enforcement matters. It looks like we have one. Is Pim available?
Actually, my name is Mike Malloy. I'm the Director of Enforcement Division.
Oh, okay.
Can everyone
Hi.
hear me? Hi.
Yes.
I just became director back in May, so Pim's actually out. She's on maternity leave. She just had a baby about 2 weeks ago. So I don't know how she presents it, so bear with me a bit. But yeah, there's one disciplinary action since you guys last met from July 1st to September 30th. I have some limited data if you have questions about it.
Just a reminder to raise your hand if you have any questions. Does anybody have any questions on this agenda item or comments? Scott.
Now, this is one that keeps reoccurring with these classroom delivery of either their courses expiring or their provider expiring. I'm not sure if we have anybody from the education department. I just had a quick question. I mean, obviously they should keep up on this. They should be monitoring their approvals. Does TREC like pick up the phone, since there's not that many providers, and actually call and say, hey, did you know your provider expired? Or are we doing anything like that, or should we?
That would be something probably Jen would let you know. I don't know if they receive email notifications like the license holders do or not, in regards to saying, you know, things are about to expire. That would probably be best for her. I mean, if she's not available, I can take down the question and find out the answer for you if you like.
I'm here, Mike.
Okay.
And yeah, I can address that. We do send out 30, 60, and 90-day expiration notices to our education providers. And then we have a back-end process when something like this occurs that requires us reaching out to the education providers when we are made aware that a course has been offered after it's been expired. And I think we've touched on this a little bit before, but we also prioritize the students in this, you know, when this occurs, in that, you know, we want to make sure that they're not penalized for the actions of the providers.
Hey, Jen, so we know about all the reminders. Once the provider expires or courses expire, do we send out any kind of notification that they cannot conduct business under either that course or that provider anymore, or is it just assumed they've already been notified?
No, it's part of the expiration notice.
So we don't send something after they've expired?
Yeah, they get the 30, 60, and 90-day renewal reminders, and then do we send, Crystal, I think you're on, do we send an after?
Yes, for providers, if they expire, they get a notification saying that their license has expired and they should not offer courses going forward.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Rob, I believe I saw your hand raised. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, just comment. I've actually just gotten some expiration notices. Something's due in 90 days, so that we are getting notices.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 6. I know, Vanessa, you said that Chelsea was going to join us. Did we need to move this around?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and take the next, hold on, let me see what the next one is.
Maybe number 8.
That's the comments one, right?
With the letter we received?
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and take that one? I actually just messaged her to let her know. It's not often you get to agenda item 6 that quickly, right?
We're just super efficient today.
You guys, yeah, killing it. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this one, and I let her know we're moving, so she should be on soon, okay?
All right. Okay, so in your packet, we had a letter from a Miss Jill Brussard, I hope I said that right, regarding a request to require coursework dedicated to racism. So I'll open this up for discussion and then share my thoughts as well, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and how you would recommend us proceeding on this topic. So let's see, I have Scott and then Lori.
Go ahead, Lori.
Scott?
Go ahead, Scott, and then I'll go after.
Okay. I've done a little research on this, so you know, of course, y'all know I've typed up some notes. So bear with me. It takes about, let's see, about a minute and a half. So I guess my first question would be, is this something that we can direct, for instance, the writing group to include in the Legal 1, Legal 2, or broker responsibility if we so choose, or would we need to actually modify the rules on this? So that's the ultimate question. And then here's what I've got. Under TREC rules, section 531.19, we cover discriminatory practices. Real quickly, it says no real estate license holder shall inquire about, respond to, or facilitate inquiries about, or make disclosure of an owner, previous or current occupant, potential purchaser, lessor, or potential leasee of real property, which indicates or is intended to indicate any preference, limitation, or discrimination based on the following: race, color, religion, sex, national origin, ancestry, familial status, or disability. That also includes AIDS, HIV. What I found is Legal Update 2 used to be called Legal Update 2, Agency Ethics and Hot Topics. I'm not sure why the name changed just to simply Legal Update 2. In the current Legal Update 2 course, the Canons of Professional Ethics and Conduct is covered on page 2, but it only refers to the first 3 canons, which I found interesting. Here are the canons: fidelity, integrity, competency, consumer information, and then what we're talking about, discriminatory practices, and then the IABS. So in my opinion, to get this discussion started, I think the Legal Update 2, which is the course where it should be in, should include the following: always cover all of the canons, provide 1 to 3 case studies on any of the following: race, color, religion, sex, national origin, ancestry, familial status, or disability. We probably should request that they include information on additional local laws that may cover additional protected classes. And just for instance, this last year, a good update might be the recent Supreme Court rulings covering sex. Some have debated this ruling would also prohibit discrimination against LGBTQ people in housing and other areas. So that's what I found. That's what we have right now, kind of in Legal Update 2. And I guess the ultimate question is, wouldn't it just be easier to include it in the Legal 2 where it really appropriately should already be? That way we know every single license holder is going to get it. We don't have to change rules by increasing hours or adding an elective requirement, but it would get things done. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Scott. Lori, I believe, is next.
Okay, thanks, Scott. And I'll reiterate the same thing. One thing that I wanted to bring up is in the Texas Occupation Code 1101.455, E2 and 15 talks specifically about requirements for Legal 1 and Legal 2. Part of that is fair housing and also ethics. So I, like Scott, believe that perhaps rather than creating a mandated hourly course, that we just really expound on that in Legal 1 and Legal 2. Actually, like you said, Legal 2 is where it's going to be found. And so we just add more to that. I would also like to suggest that since leadership comes from the top, behavior of the brokerage comes from the top down, that we also consider adding this perhaps, or reaching out to broker lawyer committee and seeing about adding a fair housing portion into the broker responsibility course as well, with regards to policies, procedures, etc. So that would kind of be my thought for that. Now, I do want to let you know too, in qualifying education, we get a whole chapter devoted to fair housing. So you're going to get it when you get your license, and then plus you're going to have it afterwards. Now, I know we have to make distinctions between realtors and licensees, okay? And TREC is for all licensees. Of course, realtors always have a little bit more to say when it comes to fair housing with the code of ethics and that kind of thing. But I agree with Scott. I think we don't expound enough on the canons of professional ethics, which is a requirement for all licensees. That is the base requirement.
Thank you, Lori. Jennifer.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, Scott and Lori, staff actually has a similar mindset in that, well, first of all, we did a little research and we have at least 10 CE elective courses that are clearly diversity topics. And we know that just based on course title. There are probably more, but in a search in that manner, we were able to identify that. And then like Lori said, NAR has the course on diversity topics that several of our CE providers offer for elective credit as well. The Legal Update 1 and 2 courses, Legal Update 1 in Chapter 6 has property management. The section includes the use of criminal history reports to qualify tenants. Criminal history section also talks about the Fair Housing Act and prohibits discrimination in the sale and rental of housing based on protected categories. Also discusses HUD's requirements of using criminal records, and specifically states that according to HUD, African Americans and Hispanics are arrested and convicted disproportionately to their share of the population. And then there's also an exam question on that topic. In Legal Update 2, Chapter 4, Title Issues and Closings includes a section on FERPTA practices, which discusses when the seller is a foreign person and not a U.S. citizen. Not totally a diversity topic, but I just want to give you guys, I had kind of a feel for what's already there. The new version that was just approved of the broker responsibility course, Chapter 7, includes written policies, includes a section on website accessibility to individuals with disabilities, and the content of this course was modified to be gender inclusive. So rather than saying him and her, they and them, instead of he and she, those types of things. So I think, we're not where you probably don't want to go, and I'm just going to say, is going down the road of creating a required course like the contracts courses is a huge undertaking. And I'm not sure that really our rules allow for us to cover a course that is specifically just on racism, because the rule language says, content that supports the skill and development of a license holder, real estate practitioner. But I think we agree that you could encourage the writing groups, and I'm sure that they would be more than willing to broaden the ways in which they cover the legal those topics in our Legal Update 1 and 2 courses, which are coming up. They're next on the agenda to be rewritten. And so I think it's a great opportunity to say, hey, let's see where we can develop this a little bit more, lean into it a little heavier. And then talking with my staff, we came up with a couple of ideas, which were, a lot of the names that we use in the courses are Susie, Greg, Christine, and maybe we could use more diverse names in our case studies and the examples. So those are just some of the thoughts from the staff perspective for you to consider.
Thank you. And just a reminder to uncheck your hand if you have finished speaking. Lori, I didn't know if you had another comment.
Oh, the only other comment that I was really going to make was, you know, and that right along with Jennifer, I don't know that that would be such a great idea to continue to mandate. How many hours do we mandate? Because we've already mandated some now with the 3-hour contracts class. So that was my only other comment. Sorry, I'll unraise my hand now.
Thank you, Lori. No. And Candy, I just got your little note. Did you have a comment?
Not yet. I want to comment on the meeting when we schedule our meetings. I just can't find how to raise my hand.
Hi, Candy. Okay. And then Marianne, I believe you raised your hand as well. I believe you're muted if you're talking.
I was just wanting to see if you could hear me. I'm with muted. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, so I did have a couple of things on this whole diversity thing. So we do cover that a lot. Like Jennifer said, there's a lot of classes, but I do think kind of following with Lori and Scott, I think really we just need to add a little bit more into our legal and our broker responsibilities. Our content is slightly updated, but just adding a little bit more, I think, would take care of this matter versus requiring a 2-hour course around it, because there's so many options for them to take. And most brokers already require that of a lot of their agents already. So just wanted to say, yes, I think putting something, broker responsibility, and then adding a little bit more, making legal to a little more robust. Okay. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great ideas. And one thing I'd encourage, at least one of the case studies include property management. I don't have time to go through all the involvement I've had in expert witness cases in just incredible discrimination in property management, both apartments and also commercial. So, but I'm very much in favor of what everybody's saying.
Okay. Well, it sounds like, Scott, did you have one more thing?
Yes, so to move this forward, just to clarify, Jen, is all we need to do is basically as a group tell you, hey, send this suggestion over, and then you can do that for us. Okay, then to kind of close it out, I guess well, Cleo close it out, but my final thoughts would be, I think the best suggestion, especially after what I'm hearing, I agree really good a lot with Charles, is let's add a little bit more in the broker responsibility. Of course, that's going to be a couple years out on that one, but on the legal too, definitely my suggestion is truly the case studies. That's what's going to really, really help a lot. I would suggest on at least 2 case studies, one on like what Charles is saying, the property management end, and then maybe a second one on, they'll have to brainstorm, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking sellers that don't want to sell to a specific group or something along those lines. These case studies can really help bring out some discussion and bring things into light. So I think that's the route to go, but at least a couple case studies to really give it some oomph.
Thank you, Scott. Jennifer, do you need us to make a motion to send this to the writing groups?
No, that's not necessary. I will definitely take this to the writing group, and I think, you know, they will embrace that.
All right. Mr. Albers.
Thanks. And I agree with everything that's been said so far, but I want to take it just a little bit further. If you read the email that was sent closely, it's not just discrimination that she's talking about, and y'all have all been talking about discrimination. She's also talking about racism and implicit bias. And I think we need to focus on those issues as well, not just discrimination in general. But, you know, when we give the instructions to the writing groups and all the other things we're doing, don't just say discrimination, say racism and implicit bias as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Albers. I would, just to tie the loop on this a little bit, one, to Jill Brassard, if I hope I said your name correctly, if you are listening, that was a fabulous and articulate letter, and I really appreciated you sending that to us. I think it is a topic of conversation that we all need to have at the forefront of everything we do in education, as well with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So thank you for sending that to us. So with that said, sounds like we would like to have a consensus to send this to staff to bring to the writing groups, and certainly appreciate that dialogue and conversation around it. It is very, very important. So thank you for that. All right, I think we're ready to move on.
Can I interrupt very quickly? Sure. If you want, I think you can go either way. If you want to make, if anyone here wants to make a more formal recommendation, you could move and vote on that. The recommendation to, take to staff to address these issues, or if you want to lay them out, or if you just want to say the concerns raised in that letter, something along those lines. I know it sounded like a few of you had some more specific thoughts. So if somebody wants to capture that in a motion, you can, or if Jennifer seems comfortable in taking the lead on that, but that is up to you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. What do you all think? Do you want to make a motion to make it more formal? I
think Jen's got it. I don't think there's a reason for a motion. What are y'all's thoughts? Okay, Jen, I think you got a synopsis of kind of what we're looking for as a suggestion for the writing group. I agree really a lot with what Rick just said. We should attach a copy of that letter to the writing group. And if you'll give them this tip, studies critical thing, those 2 words should give them an idea of the level of the case study that should be written.
Sure.
Okay, critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Ms. Stokes, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a comment? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not used to this.
There she is. Hi.
So I don't, I guess I'd be going back to Jennifer. I mean, one thing I don't want to do is make it seem as though we're just going, hey, go beef up legal 1 and 2. I mean, I think we're all taking it to heart. We've spent a little bit of time here talking about this. We want to send the message that this would be something we don't want them to consider really more, that we would implicitly agree, we would want them to do it, I guess, is the kind way to put it. So what's the strongest way to communicate that? It's a question for Jennifer. And if we were in the same room, I'd be looking right at you.
It might be more of a question for general counsel. I mean, I feel comfortable what this group is asking. I also feel confident in the writing groups and their support of this inclusion. But I think it's also up to the comfort level of this group, and then maybe with Vanessa's input, if making it a motion would give it more weight.
I don't know that it gives it more weight. If you, Jen, feel comfortable with everything that, if you feel like you have the message that's intended and you can move forward with everything here, we're recording it, we'll know exactly what was said and what was included, that's fine too. So it's really, honestly, I didn't mean to make it more complicated. It's truly just a call of what this group feels the most confident in moving forward with. And, having full faith in Jennifer, I think you can do it either way.
I'll also mention that, in addition to sharing the letter from Ms. Broussard, I can direct the writing group to listen to this part of the conversation of this meeting because it is recorded. And if you would like I would initiate this with an email or some type of formal, written notice to the writing group. And if you'd like, I can run that through Kalea, your chair, prior to sending, just to make sure that she feels like that you feel like I've covered everything in that.
I think that's great. And can we just maybe add this to the agenda item for the next meeting and just get an update on what their response was?
Sure.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
And this is Chelsea. I'm sorry, y'all. I joined a little bit late. This letter originated, it was sent to every member of the commission. And so they asked that it be passed to ESAC for some, just for its attention. It's not unusual to get comments like this. This is one license holder, but it's a reflection of our current climate, right? So it's on everyone's mind to make fair housing kind of front of mind and to do what we can to promote equity in our line of work. This curriculum will come back to the commissioners, right, for final approval. So I think it will come just even informally full circle. They too are wanting equity to be a part of the curriculum in a prominent way, given our current climate. So I think you have handled this in a way that I think is exactly what the commissioners wanted from you, which is to just be thoughtful about how we could respond to this person.
And I will craft a response to Ms. Broussard as well on behalf of our committee to make sure she understands that we have addressed it and are taking it seriously. So, all right, I think we can move on. So now that we have Ms. Butschultz here with us, did you want to go ahead and kick us off for agenda item number 6?
Sure. So, and y'all may want to provide a little bit of an update on, or Jen, do you want to start us on this one to just talk about the work that has been done on the CE course topics? I know there's a lot of work that's gone on that I have not been a part of. I've kind of weighed in more recently.
Well, how about Lori? She was the head of the chair of the group.
Great, that's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you, Scott. Actually, Jennifer was a key part of the group as well because her staff crafted this after us giving them, what we wanted to see, and I think they did a beautiful job. And I just want to say thank you to the group because we could not have done it without you guys. It was amazing how we all, once we got into this one mind frame and found the path, we just immediately went down it. So we kind of, our mindset was to give this document that we have kind of crafted an opportunity to grow and move and change as we do in our practice. And so we decided that it would be a better opportunity to have it as a staff letter or a staff piece rather than mandating it elsewhere. And so these were the points that we came up, and of course the one that was nearest and dearest to all of our hearts was after the first block. If you go down and you see reference state and federal laws applicable to course content when preparing course applications. So one thing that we wanted to make sure of is that we are following the requirement where we are using state law and referencing back to that when we are creating courses that have to do with our practice. So that was kind of where we were going with this. This is a document that can be changed at will if needed be. So that's kind of where we were going with this. So I hope that kind of describes it. Anything else you want to add, Scott?
No, I think that's a great summary. We tried to make, Trek really did a great job on this document. It lists, what we've went with was, if you can scroll back up a little bit, is suggested topics, not required topics, but recommended topics. And then, of course, we listed those federal and state laws. It's to really help guide people into writing a course. And then we came up with that last list, which, of course, is the non-allowables. And ultimately, it is still up to the Trek staff. They can always say yay or nay if they come across something that's just, I don't know, backwards somehow. And we also, we didn't, on that first list of suggested topics, we went really, really broad, but we didn't limit it in any way. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm, again, thumbs up to everybody. The whole group, we spent hours and meetings and hours and meetings and then Trek took it over and really summarized what we came up with. We really decided to go against changing rules. We thought that was just going to be too much, and this just gives the flexibility not only for the providers but also the Trek staff to update it, and it will be publishable so providers can download it and see it or at request. So great job for everybody.
Yes.
Awesome.
Any other comments?
I wanted to tell you kind of where, kind of give you my thoughts on how to use this document. I'm very grateful for it. You can tell that it's the reflection of a lot of hard work. So thank you for each of your hard work on it. The way I see this document as something that we in administration can utilize to help providers understand what our rules say and what may or may not be approved based on those, and based on a more thorough review. I mean, we won't just approve something that relates to promulgated form, contract forms. We need more details than that, right? But we are in the process of updating our website, and there are some pages on our website related to course approval and what it takes that have so many words that are not, in my mind, not terribly helpful. And so Jen and Vanessa and I talked last week about utilizing this document in that way to help inform changes to our website and to include this list on an update to our website. I do want to say that I am reluctant and would like not to include the last line, what we will not. I think that the top two sections are instructive. They are more useful than, will we approve something that includes the basics of social media? Not if that's all that it is. Can those words be included in a course, but not the primary purpose? Yeah, probably. And so I think kind of including that list allows for some more confusion than anything else, and would like not to include that. But I'm thankful for the work on this. I also want to mention that I want y'all to feel like you don't have to get in the weeds as much as you did in this instance. I was looking at your scope in our rules, and it's, review and revise curriculum standards, course content requirements and instructor requirements, make recommendations to the commission, right? And this is a document that is not a recommendation to the commission. It's more helpful to me and to our staff. And I'm very grateful for it. But I also want you to know that if you don't want to be in the weeds this much, I understand, because that's really, we have to be in the weeds. That's our job. I'm very grateful for this list. I think it's very instructive to providers who are trying to figure out what will and will not be approved.
All right, thank you. I thought it was a fabulous job as well. I'm glad it's helpful to staff in a sort of internal document to use. So thank you to everybody who worked on that, and great job. So we don't need a motion to adopt this. I would say that we could have a consensus to adopt it minus the last portion to be used on the website, or as staff needs to use it. And I thought it was high level enough that we can have great classes come out of this list as well. So I see a couple of hands going. Kelly, did you have another comment? Your hand is still raised.
Well, I didn't realize it was still raised. I will make a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of went around and around on that last sentence when we met in the group. I think the kind of our motivator was to give guidance as to what we're trying to steer away from. So if I hear you correctly, Chelsea, I think you're more just suggesting, hey, we'll use that internally, but we don't necessarily want to post that outwardly, is what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think
then,
it's a good training thing for our staff, but I just think it's a
Right.
little bit less black and white than that, and I think providers would like for it to be a little less black and white than that. So to include it would not be particularly productive.
okay. And then, so you're just suggesting that we put it on the website. Was that kind of where we went with it? And then I think one of the ideas we had out of the group was that would be something we looked at, right, Scott, on each time we met, just to do a quick glance, get suggestions on whether or not we needed to expand that or what have you. I'm just trying to recall what our thought was on the review of that.
Well, respectfully, I can't disagree anymore. I mean, the whole purpose of our committee is, and this working group is, we're supposed to, like she said, talk about the course topics, the guidelines, all of that. And why wouldn't we want to give the providers a heads up? This is not going to work. Don't even waste the hours and 10 hours to write a 1-hour course, because we're not going to accept it. I mean, why would we want to play games? Why wouldn't we want them to know? Why wouldn't we want to lead them into the kind of level of courses that the commissioners, quite frankly, have been asking about? This was a whole debate when we talked about increasing hours. We decided, instead of increasing hours, why don't we increase the level of the topics? So it says on the form, bear with me one moment while I pull the PDF. It says, while there are many course topics that support personal and professional development, they are not always acceptable. Let's see, here it is. The following are examples of course topics generally unacceptable for real estate CE credit. At that point, I figure if a provider has any kind of question, they can just pick up the phone. But it's letting them know, for the most part, hey, these are the ones, we're not going to be doing self-improvement courses at the time. So respectfully, I can disagree. I mean, we debated this out for 3 meetings over hours and hours and hours, and I would love to keep the form just like it is.
Thank you, Scott. Candy, I believe you had a comment?
Yes, I'm halfway between everybody. I think that bottom section is awesome, but my immediate reaction was, if the course is on that fully, then it's not approved, but we use pieces of it. In the wording, generally unacceptable, that's not, I think that's too ambiguous. I think if somehow, I don't know how to word it, I'll play with it, but I think understanding some things are not acceptable. Jennifer can tell you that she went through days of dealing with me on one course trying to get it written appropriately and putting it up, and I couldn't figure out what to do. Pat Strong and I kept trying, and we couldn't get it done right. And so our frustration was we couldn't get enough guidance. Not that Jennifer wasn't helping us, we just couldn't get the pieces set in place. So I think that, Scott, I agree with you, having the list, but somehow not set in stone. A little.
So maybe we massage that sentence to say, courses with the primary topic of the following would generally be unacceptable. Would that maybe?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
What are the everybody here?
My thought on that is that, well, I'll tell you what I did, and it just as one who was not involved in the entire process, but just looking at this for the first time, right? I just looked at the boxes. I didn't look at all the explanations. And that's what people do on a website. What can I do? What can I not do? They will never look at and we design our website that way, right? With that in mind, that it has to stay fairly simple. So, I mean, could we have an explanation of I mean, I would much prefer to not have a list of topics that won't be approved generally, and have sort of a caveat: if you want to go outside of this list, pick up the phone, coordinate with staff. I mean, just don't spend the time, but to just encourage engagement from the front end. Candy, my guess is that if you had this list that included the negative, that wouldn't necessarily have helped you with the specifics of your curriculum, because you probably talked to Jen about those things. Other than that, it was the details.
And you just said visual learner. That's what you just told us, and that's that chart. I understand now that you say it that way, that we can do that.
I think, if I may, you know, where Chelsea is leaning is, I think that there is some vulnerability in or subjective nature to saying something is generally unacceptable. And that's what she and Vanessa and I kind of talked about last week when we were looking at this. And that maybe the focus of this document should be how to best prepare and submit a course application, focusing on what is appropriate content, which you guys have done in all of these, you know, recommended topics, and then referencing the state and federal law, and then letting, you know, I think as Chelsea suggested, from an internal standpoint, this is a great training document for my staff, and can let them know, you know, with no modifications, continue to use this. And then again, leaning toward like what Scott suggested is, and Candy, is if you don't, and saying something like, if you don't see something on this within these topics that you would like to present in a CE course, then give our staff a call and let's talk about it. Would that serve, I mean, to me, I think that might serve the same purpose as what this bottom box does. Again, incorporating this into an instructional guide for education providers when they are preparing courses, and then using this internally for our staff. I'm just putting that out there. I think it could function in both ways.
And if I may, I mean, the job is done with regards to the work group. How staff at TREC chooses to utilize the document, I would say, especially for the website, I'm glad you're redoing the website, is you know, to mitigate phone calls, to mitigate questions, to help staff understand, you know, what their guardrails are with regards to providers submitting courses. And so I think, I guess I'm indifferent a little bit to what Candy was saying with regards to, you know, how it's being used and what is needed from an internal perspective at TREC. So, you know, I don't think it's necessarily on us to determine what they post on the website, so long as they understand and staff understands what the work group has done with regards to the course topics that will be approved and not approved. I definitely, I'm building a website myself as well, and I do understand where your eye goes on the screen. So I understand what Chelsea is saying with regards to what people take away from a screen from a web page. So that would just be my 2 cents. I think we have a couple more hands up. Vanessa, did you have a comment?
No, I'm one of those people. Sorry.
Scott, did you have
I warned you against people like me who push the button and then don't remember what they did for. So
let Charles go first. Let Charles go first.
Let's Dr. Porter, if you want to chime in.
I just have an idea to explore all the permutations. When we turn down a class because of a topic problem, is that public record? I mean, if it is, then can we just list, say, here are examples of topics that we did not approve in the last 6 months, or am I getting too far in the weeds?
I can respond to that a little bit and then open it up. I think it would be difficult from an administrative standpoint, because the only way that we're able to search our database, our record base, is through a course title search and not a content search. So I don't know that we could really, I don't know that the information gleaned through a search like that would be accurate enough.
Okay, thanks.
I do think anecdotally, though, where you're headed is perfect conversationally in the types of conversations that Jen and her staff has with providers to coach them and help them determine what could and couldn't be approved. We just approved something like this. We had a hard time, just talking about historical data.
And to add to that, I mean, my staff really communicate extensively with our education providers, especially if there's a course topic that comes in that is borderline or we don't have enough information. And my staff are already always, and I think doing a good job of encouraging that type of communication and collaboration. So our lines of communication, I think, are really, really open.
Good.
Okay. Scott and then Candy, please.
I'm not sure how to put this into words, which is strange for me, right? I'm going to, I guess, keep it short and simple. I mean, I just cannot disagree more. I mean, our only purpose, our main purpose is to increase the level of education. All I'm thinking of is, Kalia, when you get ready to go to the next TREC meeting and give a report to the commissioners, what have y'all done to increase the level of education? Well, we had 3 or 4 meetings over a 3-month period on actual topics. And what we decided to do was to suggest that they write courses on certain topics, but past that, we decided not to tell them that you can't write a course on arranging furniture. Just make sure that when you report to the commissioners that that sentence is included, because if we remove that out of this paragraph, which I think it's absurd. I mean, why wouldn't we want to communicate to our providers, this is what is acceptable, this is what is not? I have researched regulators, including NMLS, the Nationwide Mortgage Licensing System. I gave you all that document. They've got, what was it, 2 pages of non-allowables? They are very specific. They want this taught, and it's a very good list to dictate what is taught. And this list, the way we have it, allows a lot of flexibility for providers to write very, very good courses that should increase the level of professionalism for all of our license holders. That's my thoughts. And sorry, but that's it.
Thank you, Scott. Candy?
One of the things I'm going back to this is that this goes to the, am I unmuted? I am unmuted,
yes,
right?
We can hear you.
One of the things is that this should be to the providers, and I'm not sure what the number of providers we have. Do we communicate with them on any basis? I'm not a provider anymore, so I don't know, but it seems like we could have the chart and then have some sort of a conversation with the providers and say, these classes may not work. Like Jen said, have them reach out to TREC, maybe just a touch saying, hey, here are some of the things, ESAC met, here are some of the things. I don't know, can we communicate that way?
Yeah, and I think that actually speaks to Scott's beloved newsletter that he's been wanting to get out. And that would be a perfect example of a communication to the providers that shares just this, sort of a one-pager on what is permissible and what may not be permissible. I think the gray or the silver line or the gray line here is, if the primary topic or the true source and outcome of the curriculum is any one of these not permissible items versus it being potentially mentioned or included as a chapter in a course, is the discretionary piece of what is allowed and not allowed. If you're teaching a course that has some topic of marketing and you mentioned social media, is that permissible versus a course on social media and how to build your Facebook page, which is not, and so those are the conversations I think Jennifer is speaking to with regards to when a course, having that communication with the provider of what is allowed and what is not. And so, again, whether or not TREC decides to put this on the website versus whether or not they are communicating this to providers, to me, is 2 different things. And I don't know that we should be getting in the weeds on that. but I definitely hear everybody's points. Does anybody have any other comments on this before we move on? And secondly, Jennifer and Chelsea, do you need us to make a motion to adopt this, or is this just going to be an internal document that Trek adopts?
This can be just something that we utilize internally.
Okay.
Thank you
All right.
for your work on it.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Norman.
Yes, I just want to say I think the committee did an outstanding job, and I totally understand what we're saying here, because I don't think the intent was to put it on the website. And now that we are, or that it could be, it to me, if you send it to the commission's going to see all of it. Is that correct? And if the commission sees the whole entire amount, bottom line and all, I think that is the main key of letting them know what the committee has come out with. And then if we're just going to put portions of it on the website, that is helpful. I'm kind of like you. I don't think we need to necessarily get into the weeds on this. I think there's enough information there with what the committee has done to help clarify whatever somebody needs to come in and write a course. So I think we're good on it. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
If I may, I would also just like to add that when we have our commission meetings, there's always a report that's given. Generally, our Deputy Executive Director, Tony Slagle, does that on behalf of the licensing, education teams, and the communications. And he always makes sure to cover any new and helpful resources and things that have been added to the website to make sure that the commissioners are aware of the work that various groups have done. So to Ms. Norman's point, that is something that when it is there, it will be presented to the commission.
Thank you. Thank you. Scott, did you want to have a final comment? Sorry?
I forgot to lower my hand. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just to close out the conversation, thank you again to the work group. Candy, did you have? I see
just one last thing.
Sure.
I wanted to just make one quick comment. This is for the providers. We would hope that our providers were trying to be competent in doing everything, and unfortunately, it's a small minority of people who are really striving for the competency. And I think coming in as a new provider, sometimes they don't understand. They see dollar signs instead of education. Just saying.
Good thing there's Jennifer's team to vet those providers and make sure that they are up to par. All right. Well, thank you again to the work group. It was fabulous, fabulous work, and I look forward to reporting to the commission just that. So let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is discussion number 9, discussion and possible action regarding time and agenda items for next meeting. So we have a suggested date. Can you believe this is our last meeting? I just can't believe it's October. Is Monday, January 4th, which is right after the New Year. Is that going to work for everybody? That might be a tough day. Alternative dates would be the 5th or the 6th. How does that feel to everybody? Indifferent?
I don't know if I'll still be a member because I'm still waiting on hearing on my application to be a member again. However, it's fine with me.
Okay, and that's a good question, Scott. Do we have an update on when and how that process is going and when we are notified?
I can speak to that a little bit. It's in process, right? So we have all the applications. They're with the selection committee. That selection committee will meet later in October to finalize. And then the recommendations will be made at the November meeting with those who will be on that recommended list having been, I'll reach out to them ahead of time just to make sure they still want it and all of the things, right? So we'll see the appointment in November. And I think the terms expired December 31st, according to my spreadsheet. So that January, you know, Jen and I talked about this a little bit this morning, actually, which is that January 4th date a little early? The reason we do it the way we do it is because we have to get a lot of committees in prior to a February meeting. And so the thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, where we ended was, let's go ahead and select a date that works for everyone. So if one of these dates works, it does. If it doesn't, then we'll have to figure out another, you know, you guys can throw out some dates, and we'll figure it out. If we end up having to change that date, just for any reason, if we want to end up just pushing it till after the February meeting, something like that, that's when you guys do your elections and your positions and stuff like that, we can. But what we had thought was, let's get the January 1 on the books. We can meet with the chair, actually meet with both chairs, Chair Kestner and Chair Youngblood, and talk about a roadmap for the next year. Topics, things the commission's interested in seeing, things that you guys are interested in seeing. So I'm saying this a little bit long-windedly to say, I think it makes sense to get something on the books. Does it stay on the books? I don't know. We may end up having to move it, but getting that roadmap out for you guys, I think will be really important in getting that input and that insight. So if I understand completely, if that first week after the holiday doesn't work, we can look at some other dates right now. Amber's got the calendar. Just know we're always sort of bound by all of the other committees that have to meet. And we have a lot right now, but feel free to do that. But that's kind of what we're thinking, is that selection process will be done. Do we almost want to have like a kickoff topic meeting, look at the roadmap, see where we're headed?
Okay.
Does that sound right, Jennifer?
Go ahead.
I was just saying, Jennifer, does that sort of summarize what you and I talked about this morning?
Yes. Yeah, it does. And I don't think, you know, I think historically we have always met the first week of January, but I don't know that that's for any particular reason. And if that's hard on people because of the holidays, you know, having some flexibility, maybe thinking, I think somebody mentioned the 11th of January as
that would be the next Monday, so the second Monday of January, just to give us a little breathing room.
Yeah, Amber, you are the holder of all calendars, so
I think that ESAC normally does meet on the first week of January, April, July, and October, just because we have other committees like Inspector Committee and Broker Responsibility that would meet like the second week or then the third week, or, you know, so we're just trying to fit all of them in. Nothing is currently set for the 11th. That just means that possibly another committee would need to maybe move up to that first week. We'll just have to see. But I mean, it is available.
Okay, I have Candy and then Mr. Albers.
Okay, so we just said it typically meets in the first week of the year, except for last year was January 13th. And then in April, it was the third week. And then in July, it was the second week. And in October, it was the first week. Can we try to pick one or do something to try to get it so that going forward, we can set those days out? Because, you know, we try to assume that we're going to be on this date. And I don't care whether it's first, second, third. I don't care. Just something that's somewhat conforming. Amber, we're going to throw it at you, darling.
Rick, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Candy stole my thunder.
Yeah.
I was looking at my calendar and came up with the same dates she just said.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and choose the date in January, and then maybe Amber can take a stab at creating some consistency around us moving forward through the year. Or did we want to definitely say like second Monday of the month? quarterly, January, April, July, and October?
I think that can get more complicated for you to rely on, because the coordination of people is more extensive than one would think. But probably what we could do is, if you guys pick, Amber and I have been working on getting a more routine committee schedule in place anyways. So if you guys want to pick your January dates, and then Amber, you can interrupt me and tell me to stop saying this. If you want, at the January meeting, we could probably have your next few meeting dates scheduled out, because we're trying to get on that system. So we could go ahead and set those tentative dates. We probably can't go too far out, but we could probably do the next 2 or so meetings, right, Amber?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay. So we can commit to doing that for you guys. How's that?
That sounds great. And we're seeing some comments here that the second Monday is looking good for people. How about, does January 11th sound good for our January meeting? And then we'll take these notes with regards to the second Monday of the month. Does that work for everybody? Thumbs up on the 11th? All right. Let's shoot for the 11th of 2021. All right, so do we have any topics that we want to add to our next agenda? I know we've got the newsletter communications that we're going to add. Was there anything else? Anything that anybody is craving to talk about? We'll do our elections for chair and officers. All right, well, we will, Lori, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to ask, where were we on the group that we were going to talk about designations and things like that?
Yes, that is going to be we'll drum that up again at the top of the year, because I think the rule change wasn't until February. Mm-hmm. So we were just a little premature on that. So that's a good call. Why don't we go ahead and add to revisit that, the designations and courses cleanup in the rule, okay, to our agenda for January, and we can maybe trigger up a work group for that. Amber, did you capture that? Candy, are you good with that? Yeah, okay. All right. Anything else? Y'all, we did this in an hour. I'm so proud. Great job. Thank you for all your hard work again. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Can't believe we're saying that. Enjoy the weather. And until next time, thanks for all you do. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.